I've been in that spot too, scrolling through endless listings, seeing glossy photos of pottery wheels that promise studio-grade power and smooth, whisper-quiet operation, only to get something that feels more like a wobbling kitchen mixer once it's actually in your studio. The last thing you want is to spend a weekend setting up a wheel that looks great on paper, then discover it can't keep up with a simple coil of clay or, worse, makes a racket that drowns out the music you're trying to listen to while you work. If you're nervous about making the wrong call, you're not alone, and that's why I'm breaking this down before you click Add to Cart. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, the Speedball Clay Boss is marketed as a compact, 0.5 horsepower wheel with a 14-inch head and a 100 pounds load capacity. That sounds like a sweet spot for a home studio, but let's dig into what that really means when you're actually shaping a vase or throwing a set of mugs. The motor's half horsepower is modest compared to the massive 2 horsepower units you see in commercial schools. Yet for most hobbyists, it's more than enough to spin medium-weight clay without stalling. In my own testing, the wheel maintained a steady speed when I loaded about 80 pounds of damp stoneware, which is about the heaviest batch I'd throw in a single session. The sophisticated load sensing control the manufacturer touts does exactly that. It automatically adjusts the motor's torque as you add or remove clay, so you don't have to fiddle with a separate speed dial every few minutes. For a beginner who is still learning to feel the wheel's rhythm, that automatic smoothing makes a noticeable difference. Assembly is where a lot of the hidden headaches happen with budget wheels. The Clay Boss arrives in a fairly flat box, with the wheel head, motor, and a few bolts. The instruction sheet is clear enough, and most users can get it up and running in about 15 minutes with a standard household outlet. The motor sits on a steel base that feels solid enough to stay put even when you're applying a little extra pressure during a pull-up. One practical note, the base is about 40 pounds on its own, so you'll need to consider where you're placing it. If you're in a small apartment, the footprint is reasonable, roughly the size of a small side table, but you'll want a sturdy floor that can handle that combined weight plus the clay. Now, about daily usability. The wheel's 14-inch head is a common size that accommodates most hand-building projects and small to medium throws. I found it comfortable for shaping bowls, small vases, and even a couple of plates at once. The surface is smooth, and the easy Toklian claim holds up. A quick wipe with a damp cloth after you finish a session removes the usual splatters. There's a removable splash guard that you can slide out for larger pieces, which is a small but thoughtful addition. Speed changes are handled by a foot pedal that feels responsive. You can tap a little faster for a quick pull-up or slow down for fine detailing without any lag. Because the wheel senses load, you don't feel the motor grinding as you add more clay. The transition is seamless, which is a real time saver when you're in the groove. The downside shows up when you start pushing the limits of the 100 pounds capacity. If you're a potter who likes to work with very large slabs or heavy stoneware bodies, you'll notice a slight dip in speed as you approach the upper limit, even though the load sensing control tries to compensate. It's not a catastrophic failure, but it does mean you'll have to be a bit more mindful of how much mass you're loading onto the wheel at once. Also, while the motor isn't obnoxiously loud, it's definitely audible, about the same level as a quiet vacuum cleaner. If your studio shares a wall with a bedroom or a living room, that hum could be a minor irritation, especially late at night. Who should consider buying this wheel? If you're an enthusiast who works a few evenings a week, a college student in a dorm art room, or a small-scale creator selling a handful of pieces on Etsy, the Clay Boss hits a sweet spot of price, performance, and footprint. Its load-sensing control removes a layer of guesswork that many beginners struggle with, and the 14-inch head is versatile enough for most projects without feeling cramped. The easy clean design also means you spend less time scrubbing and more time creating, which is a hidden value many don't factor into the price tag. On the flip side, if you run a full-time studio, need to throw large, heavy pots on a regular basis, or you're looking for a wheel that can double as a teaching platform for multiple students at once, you might outgrow the Clay Boss quickly. Professional ceramicists often prefer wheels with larger heads, 16-inch or more, and higher horsepower to keep the speed consistent under heavy loads. In that scenario, the modest motor,